Well, anyway, now I have a better technology than Ramalingam. That's why my identity with him is very limited. I'm going to use him, use his understanding, but then I'm going to use more knowledge. So you should not get stuck with a particular tradition. Then you will be very limited.
So, there's this old Sinhala proverb that paints this really vivid, honestly kind of comical picture, but the psychology behind it is just profound.
Oh, I love this one. It's so visceral.
Right. It goes like this. A woodpecker keeps pecking trees until the day it picks a banana tree, then its beak gets stuck.
The imagery there is just doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you picture the woodpecker out in the world, just aggressively conquering all these hard, formidable trees. It's pure outward-facing momentum, you know?
Totally. It thinks it's completely invincible.
Exactly. It's driven entirely by its own appetite. But then it hits something soft, something yielding, but incredibly dense and sticky.
And the momentum doesn't just slow down, it gets completely absorbed.
Right. The bird is stopped dead in its tracks. The game is over, not because of a harder wood, but because the very nature of the target fundamentally changed the rules of engagement.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive into the source material. We are using that exact proverb as our lens today.
Yeah.
Because we are analyzing a really fascinating excerpt from a 20th century ascetic manual.
Yes, Sri Swami Sivananda's practice of brahmacharya.
That's the one. And our mission today for you, the listener, is to see how this specific text uses a highly graphic, honestly radical narrative to completely dismantle our modern illusions about physical attractions, desire, and just the surface level of beauty.
And, you know, to really understand this text, you have to approach it as a psychological masterclass rather than just like an ancient fable.
Right, because Sivananda's manual is focused on brahmacharya, which is about intense spiritual discipline and redirecting sexual energy.
Exactly. And this particular story takes these abstract concepts of blind lust and spiritual dispassion, what the text calls vairagya, and physicalizes them.
It physicalizes them in a way that is designed to shock your system.
Oh, absolutely. It's essentially a blueprint for how a fully dispassionate female spiritual guru can slay the demon of lust in a young male who is just completely enslaved by it.
And she does it using wisdom and grace that goes so far beyond mere words. So let's set the scene. We start the narrative on the banks of a river.
A classic setup.
Right, two fundamentally opposed forces colliding. We have this young prince who is out on a hunting excursion.
He is our woodpecker.
Yes, exactly. He's the woodpecker. A man of action, out conquering the physical world, driven by external desires, pecking at every tree he finds.
And then, there by the river, he sees a young princess.
But she is not lounging by the water waiting to be rescued or admired. The text tells us she has a deeply philosophical bent of mind.
She's essentially a spiritual guru already.
Right. She has mastered several pedantic books and is actively practicing deep meditation on the Atman, you know, the inner self, the eternal soul.
So that dichotomy is established immediately. The prince represents this consumption-driven energy. He is hunting.
Always scanning the external environment for things to satisfy his physical appetites?
Exactly. While the princess represents the exact opposite. Her entire focus is inward. She is cultivating a profound spiritual dispassion.
She is entirely self-contained.
Right. She isn't looking for validation from the physical world because her reality is anchored internally. She is the banana tree.
I love that. So the prince sees her physical form and immediately goes into conqueror mode. He approaches her and asks her to marry him.
And she flatly refuses.
But he just keeps pecking away at the tree. He entreats her again and again, completely blinded by his physical attraction to her.
He just won't stop?
Nope. Finally, she relents, but she sets a very specific condition. She tells him, "Please come and see me at my residence after 10 days. I shall marry you."
Now, to understand the brilliance of that 10-day delay, we have to look at a crucial piece of context the text provides about the prince.
Oh, this part is so interesting.
Right, because he wasn't just a hunter, he was also a student of Vedanta. He had read the exact same philosophical text the princess had.
Wait, really? So he knew the theory?
He knew it perfectly. He knew the doctrine that the physical body is a temporary vessel and not the true self.
But the text explicitly states he had no real or sustained vairagya.
Exactly. He lacked true dispassion. His knowledge was just a facade.
It's the equivalent of someone who has, like, perfectly memorized a dense scientific book on nutrition.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like they can quote the exact metabolic pathways of cellular aging, they can lecture you on glycemic indexes, but they are exclusively eating fast food while they recite it to you.
Yes. The prince knows the theory of transcending the physical body, but he is completely enslaved by his lust for her physical form,
His intellectualization is actually serving as a defense mechanism against real change.
which happens constantly, even today. People use self-help, philosophy, or spiritual jargon to feel like they are evolving.
Oh, totally. It masks their underlying lack of discipline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The prince memorized Vedanta so he could feel spiritually advanced without actually having to surrender his worldly lust.
But the princess, who has genuinely internalized this knowledge and become a true spiritual guru in this dynamic, she sees right through his intellectual masquerade,
She sees the woodpecker coming from a mile away.
which makes the 10-day waiting period a highly calculated trap.
Absolutely.
Because for the prince, those 10 days are just absolute agony. The source notes he spends many sleepless nights, completely consumed by his desire.
He's pacing the floors, feverishly anticipating the 10th day.
He probably thinks she's just playing hard to get, and
Right.
he's just waiting to claim his prize.
But that delay operates on two fronts. First, it heightens his lust to an absolute fever pitch. It draws the poison of his physical obsession entirely to the surface.
He is obsessing over the image of her face, her form.
Right. But secondly, and honestly more importantly, those 10 days give the princess the exact runway she needs to execute a biological deconstruction of that very image.
Because she knows his spirituality is entirely fake.
Exactly. She realizes she cannot debate him. If you try to argue philosophy with a man whose limbic system is entirely flooded with lust, you will lose.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk a starving person out of wanting a sandwich by explaining the concept of digestion.
Precisely. She has to destroy the very object of his obsession.
And she chooses a method that bypasses the intellect entirely. She decides to become the banana tree to his woodpecker.
She prepares to absorb the momentum of his lust and trap it in raw, inescapable reality.
And the method she uses to do this takes a really sharp, visceral turn here.
It is intense.
Extremely. So the young princess devises a means of escaping the clutches of this marriage and acting as a true spiritual guide to this prince.
What does she do?
Well, for the entire 10 days, she takes a drastic purgative of croton oil continuously.
Wow. And for context, croton oil is an intense, violently toxic laxative. It completely flushes the gastrointestinal system.
Right. And over these 10 days, she meticulously collects all of her bowel movements into 10 separate enamel commodes.
The level of physical endurance required for this is just staggering.
It is punishing. She arranges these 10 commodes neatly in a large room. She numbers them from 1 to 10.
A very methodical approach.
And she covers each and every one of these commodes with beautiful silk cloths.
That detail is so crucial.
Meanwhile, because she has been purging her body of all its fluids and waste for 10 days straight, she is physically ruined.
Naturally.
The text describes her as reduced to skin and bones. Her eyes are sunken into her skull. She is entirely bedridden, hovering near death.
You know, when you look at the sheer extremity of this action, it forces a question about her motivation.
Yeah, why go this far?
The physical agony of a 10-day croton oil purge is immense. As a royal princess, she had massive resources. She could have fled the kingdom.
He could have hidden in a remote mountain monastery to escape the marriage.
Exactly. But if she runs away, she inadvertently preserves his romantic illusion.
Oh, she just becomes the ultimate one that got away.
That is the core of her wisdom as a guru. Fleeing doesn't solve the prince's fundamental problem. It only geographically relocates the object of his desire.
That makes so much sense.
If she disappears, his lust remains perfectly intact, frozen in amber. He would spend the rest of his life writing poems about her beauty and longing for this idealized phantom.
So to truly slay the demon of lust in this young man, she has to use her own body as the teaching tool.
She forces him to confront the stark biological reality of human flesh.
And the brilliance of the lesson is anchored by those beautiful silk cloths covering the commodes.
Oh, absolutely. That detail is not just decorative, it's the entire point.
Tell us more about that.
Well, those silk cloths are a profound metaphor for human society. They represent the multi-billion-dollar industries we have built entirely on masking biological realities.
Like cosmetics, anti-aging creams, fashion, filters. the pursuit of status.
Right. We constantly drape our base physical existence in romanticized illusions. We are heavily incentivized to fall in love with the silk cloth and completely ignore the temporary, decaying biological machine underneath it.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the morning of the 10th day.
The moment of truth.
The prince arrives at the palace. He is operating on a high of pure anticipation and joy. He thinks he is walking into a romantic reunion, the culmination of his conquest.
He's ready to peck that tree.
Exactly. A maidservant conducts him to the room where the princess is lying in bed. He walks in, looks at this emaciated, skeletal, sunken-eyed woman, and his brain simply cannot process what he is seeing.
The mismatch between his expectation and the reality in front of him creates a massive cognitive failure.
He demands the maidservant. Where is the young, beautiful lady? She is not the lady whom I met the other day.
He doesn't even recognize her.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
He is so entirely blinded by his attachment to her physical exterior that when the exterior changes, the person ceases to exist for him.
Wow. And how does she respond?
The princess replies from the bed, "Oh, dear prince, I am the very same lady. I have carefully stored up my beauty in the room over yonder. Kindly come with me and see the accumulated beauty there."
I love that she doesn't defend her current appearance. She plays directly into his delusion.
Right.
She agrees with him that her beauty is a separate, tangible commodity, and she literally offers to show him where she put it.
So she leads him into the large room with the 10 numbered commodes. She removes the beautiful silk coverings, exposing the collected waste of the last 10 days.
And boom.
Yeah, she delivers the final, devastating reality check. She says, "This is the beauty of my skin and flesh."
This is the exact moment the woodpecker's beak gets stuck in the banana tree.
Yes.
We have to look at the mechanics of what is happening in the prince's brain right here. Evolutionarily, disgust is our most powerful overriding emotion because it is designed to keep us safe from disease and pathogens.
It's a survival instinct.
Right. By directly linking his profound, consuming sexual desire to profound, visceral, biological disgust, she literally short-circuits his neural pathways.
It's a violent collision between his fake intellectual spirituality and undeniable physical reality.
Exactly. His intellectual understanding of Vedanta, the concept that the body is just a temporary vessel of flesh and bone, was neatly compartmentalized in his prefrontal cortex.
While his lust was entirely driving his limbic system.
Right. And standing in that room, the princess forces those two systems to crash into each other. There is no philosophical counter-argument to a room full of human waste.
You can't debate that.
You can't. The cognitive dissonance he's been comfortably living with is brutally and permanently shattered.
The source material highlights just how deep that shatter goes, too. The text says the prince was completely stunned.
He doesn't utter a single word.
He doesn't argue. He doesn't storm out in anger. His immediate reaction is to prostrate himself at her feet and accept her as his mother.
Now, to a modern ear, the idea of suddenly calling a woman you intended to marry mother sounds completely bizarre.
It sounds like a psychological break, honestly.
It does. But within the context of the Vedantic tradition, it is the ultimate indicator of a complete paradigm shift.
Right, because the dynamic fundamentally changes from extraction to reverence.
Exactly. In many ascetic traditions, seeing all women other than one's wife as a mother is a core tenet of maintaining brahmacharya, or purity of mind.
It recategorizes the relationship entirely.
You revere a mother. You honor a mother. You are stripped of any desire to consume or possess her physically.
By calling her mother, he is acknowledging her as his spiritual guru. She has birthed his true understanding.
The lust is gone, replaced by profound respect for the wisdom and grace she demonstrated. The woodpecker is finally still.
Following this realization, the text notes he casts aside his princely robes. He leaves the palace, the wealth, the status, and retires to the forests.
A total 180.
Yeah. He seeks out the guidance of a sage, practices rigorous meditation, and ultimately he attains the knowledge of the self.
He finally achieves what he was only pretending to understand at the beginning. The text states his heart was filled with intense vairagya.
That sustained dispassion that he lacked when he was hunting by the river, he now possesses completely.
And it's because his illusion wasn't just debated, it was experientially destroyed. The external world, the robes, the crown, the physical forms he used to chase, all of it suddenly looks exactly like those silk cloths covering the commodes.
He sees the wrapping paper for what it really is.
He learned that you cannot just memorize the map to enlightenment. You have to walk the territory.
And sometimes the territory requires confronting the most uncomfortable truths about our own biology and desires.
The spiritual female guru slayed the demon of lust, not by preaching from a pedestal, but by sacrificing her own physical form to force a visceral awakening.
And this brings up the broader societal implication of this story, because, we are not living in ascetic isolation. We are navigating a world that is incredibly skilled at throwing beautiful silk cloths over absolutely everything.
Everywhere you look, the entire structure of modern advertising, social media clout, the relentless pursuit of corporate titles.
We are constantly being sold a silk cloth.
We are conditioned to be woodpeckers. We fly around, pecking at these seemingly perfect trees, a new relationship, a higher salary, a curated lifestyle online, convinced that the next tree will be the one that finally satisfies the hunger.
We might even read a few philosophy books or listen to deep dives to feel like we're becoming more detached and wise.
But in practice, we are still entirely driven by the wrapping paper.
We use the language of self-improvement as our own personal silk cloths to cover up our lack of fundamental change.
Oh, exactly. We want the aesthetics of wisdom without the grueling, unglamorous work of actually dismantling our egos and our base desires.
The princess forces us to ask, what is it going to take to stop pecking? What is our banana tree?
Because until we're willing to pull the silk cloths off our own desires and look at the raw mechanics of what we are actually chasing, we remain enslaved by them.
The prince was trapped by his biology until someone forced him to look directly at it. It is a radical narrative that strips the paint right off the walls of how we view attraction.
It really is.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, building on this idea of intellectual defense mechanisms.
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
It is. The next time you find yourself entirely consumed by a desire, whether you are obsessing over a person's image, striving desperately for a new status symbol, or feeling like you absolutely must acquire a certain lifestyle, take a step back and examine the mechanics of your own mind.
Ask yourself if you're just packing another tree.
Exactly. Are you using intellectualization or self-care as a silk cloth to cover up a lack of discipline? What exactly is hiding underneath the cloth of your current obsession? And are you genuinely in love with the reality? Or are you just mesmerized by the wrapping?
As a scientist, what I have to say is there's a high correlation between the rain that appeared that hadn't been seen in a long time and what David had just done hours earlier. And the weatherman would agree. I watched the weatherman that evening, and on the weather maps, what they showed was a low-pressure front that came across Utah, Wyoming, and it came into Colorado and then down into northern New Mexico, and it made a little loop and went right back up. And that low-pressure system is what brought the rain to that place. So when we talk about these things, some of these are anecdotal stories, but they're illustrating, from an indigenous perspective, a very powerful concept. Look at what David did. He incorporated all of his senses. He didn't ask for something to happen. He felt it had already happened. He smelled what it smells like when it happens. He heard the sounds of the rain. I didn't even tell you about that part, but he heard the sounds of the rain. And he felt as if that rain is already there. I'm going to invite you to think about this as we go into this modality of prayer that I'm going to share with you. So the principles that I'm sharing in this mode are very simple. They're also very ancient. And everything I'm saying to you, we see the instructions for this kind of prayer, for this code that allows us to speak directly to the matrix